All right, you guys. So, let's get into it. It's been a couple weeks since we've done one. Excuse me. It's been a couple weeks since we've done one. But an expert topic. So,
Yay.
A science-y topic. A digging into some new techniques topic. And what's the title of this one? We're going to call it, Can New Technology Save the Idaho 4 Case? What do I mean by that?
Whoa.
So we have slowly, since we've been full-time true crime, going through all of the details of the investigation, the evidence that we see, and those details in the Bryan Kohberger case, right? None of it looks very convincing. I think the best piece of evidence, and I think our community agrees, is probably the DNA. That's the biggest problem for Bryan and the best evidence that the prosecution has against him. But any of the other evidence, at least with the details we have right now, doesn't feel very strong. It doesn't feel strong to me. I don't think it feels very strong to other people. I understand there's a lot of news and mainstream media out there that likes to make it seem like, well, they have such an abundance of evidence, you know, and when you put it all together,
terabytes.
It's so obvious. But if you look at any of those pieces by themselves, it doesn't feel very obvious, right?
No, it
Now,
doesn't.
We get classified a lot as getting grouped in with people online that are like fighting for Bryan Kohberger's innocence. We do. I think there's this idea that if you question law enforcement in this case, you're trying to prove Bryan Kohberger's innocent. And honestly, that doesn't mean anything to me. You guys know that that's not important. I am not out here trying to prove Bryan Kohberger's innocent.
No, we don't want to defend a murderer, for one. For two, we highly respect law enforcement. But we also believe that if we see issues, it should be looked at and it should be judged.
I agreed.
They should be held accountable.
I believe that we own law enforcement. Law enforcement is ours. It is paid by our tax dollars. They are public servants, and it is our job to criticize them and the job that they are doing. So, when somebody criticizes and or tries to hold someone accountable, it means they care, okay? It might not feel very good if you're not doing a good job, but it means that they care, okay? So, going back to what I was saying, the Idaho 4 case with Bryan Kohberger, the criminology student going for his PhD, what other evidence could there be? So we just read through the PCA tonight, and we know the triangulation in that area sucks. It is awful. There's no way they're going to get a sound enough triangulation. They're going to be able to bring it to court and have it actually mean anything, right?
Right.
So we had somebody, one of our viewers, I don't remember who, but shout out to you, that sent me this video, and it sent me down a hole of trying to figure things out. So I decided to bring new forensic investigative techniques to the table to see if there is something in this that could work for this case or other cases. This isn't only applying to Idaho 4. I think it could apply to anything, honestly. So, what am I talking about? I am talking about the hum.
What does that mean? What is the hum?
The Hummer. Let's dig into the Hummer.
When you said hum, I immediately thought of, because I just watched this lady on YouTube who, it randomly just popped up in my feed where she said the Nordic mountains were like alive or something. And in her video, you could literally hear it humming. And it was so crazy sounding.
So there is a sound from the world that they can hear. But that's not the hum I'm talking about.
Okay, not the hum. It's not the Nordic mountains.
I'm talking about ENF, electrical network frequency, okay? And it's actually been used for about a decade, and they're getting even better with it. So what is ENF, and how does ENF potentially give a leg up in the Bryan Kohberger Idaho 4 case that might give some new way to investigate, right? The best thing that I think we could find right now for the Idaho 4 case is Bryan Kohberger's location. If we can get a sound bead on his location at certain times to actually factually prove he was like right by the house multiple times before leading up to the case, he was actually there during the crime, well, I think that would make me feel comfortable that he's the dude.
Oh, me too. And I find it really interesting that you know, on the night of the murders, which we just read the PCA on live stream just a little bit ago, they give us all of this location. He was here, he was driving here, he was driving there. But then it's like nothing at the actual time of the murders. Like,
yeah, it's because I don't think they have much actual evidence other than him transferring from one tower to another. There is no triangulation.
Well, and they say they have surveillance footage of supposedly his car driving around, but they don't ever cite video or any kind of location data, nothing about him entering the home, being at the home.
Yep.
Just driving around streets. And I think that's where it gets muddy. And I think if they had that, I think it would have been in the PCA. I truly do. If they had that at the time of the arrest, they would have said, look, we have video footage of this suspect going in the home or parking at the home. We see him. We got eyes on him. Like, there's no way they would leave that out of the PCA in my mind. I really do not believe so. Not in this case. I do not think so. Unless they got it after the fact, but...
Sure. So, the hum, what is it? So, alternating current, okay? When we are using electronics, when we have something plugged in, like our neon lights here, like our lights here, like our lights there and there, like our microphones here, computers, phones plugged in, everything, there is an alternating current. It is the AC current, right? So imagine these big giant telephone lines. And I don't know if you guys have ever been around them, but out in the desert of Las Vegas, we used to go to Lake Mead all the time when I was growing up. And there's these giant power lines because they got to power Vegas, which is in the middle of a dust bowl, you know, in the desert. And if there's not a lot of other noise around, if you're by those lines, you can hear bzz, 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 you know what I mean?
I've heard it before, yes.
Yeah. And I hopefully you guys have heard it, but if not, that you could probably look it up and hear it, honestly. But what that buzzing is alternating current. So the difference between alternating current or AC current is it constantly changes direction. It's going forward, backwards, forwards, backwards, forwards, backwards, and it builds up almost like this compression that allows us to get more electricity for less total amount, like, of creation. Yeah, it's strange how to explain it. It
generates itself?
Yeah, yep. And it lasts longer, essentially. I'm trying to dumb it down without going too far into the difference between, like, DC and AC or whatever it is. But yeah, it goes back and forth.
It makes sense. So that back and forth kinetic building up kinetic energy, almost like it's generating.
It's Tesla's baby.
It's like regenerating itself, essentially.
Yep. It was Tesla's baby. Without going too far into that, it was a way to get more electricity.
Nikolai Tesla.
Correct. Yep. So, but that current creates a hum. There's no way around it. It is in the U.S. standard is 60 hertz, okay? In other areas of the world, that's 50. So you could have anywhere between 50 and 60 hertz. And what 50 or 60 hertz means is that it's changing direction in the wire in the U.S. 60 times per second. That's an extremely high rate of change. You're talking about changing the momentum and direction of electricity forwards and backwards 60 times a second. So to me, that when I heard that makes sense why there's that hum. Think about how much energy that creates changing back and forth every 60 seconds per second.
Okay, so how does that...
60 times per second. That creates a vibration and in slight variation. So when electricity changes, it's not swapping perfectly. It's creating slight variations. Maybe for 1/1000th of a second, it went a little bit more forward than backwards, or you know what I mean? And that creates fluctuations in the variations that is vibrating and creating that hum. We can't hear it, but that hum around electrical things is always there. Always. I can't hear it right now, you guys, but it's here.
Now. I've definitely heard it within my home. Like I've definitely heard it before. But yeah, typically you can't.
Here's a good test for you guys. If you want to understand what I'm talking about and you've never heard it before, plug an auxiliary plug into a stereo or a computer and turn it all the way up. And on the end that you're supposed to plug into a phone or headsets or whatever, pinch it between your fingers really hard, and that creates the hum that we're talking about. That I don't know why, I don't remember. I knew it one time, I don't remember now, but it creates that hum where you can hear the hertz going back and forth.
Okay, so what does this have to do with forensics?
Yeah. So those hertz then create sound. That it turns that vibration into sound. Sound obviously travels really far, and can get picked up by other things, right? So how that can help in forensics is all across the U.S. There's different power grids and areas that's getting power, all right? Now, a good example of that would be a video that I'm going to have overlaid here that everyone else will be able to see. But we had in 2012, San Diego had a blackout. I think they call it a brownout, where it was a semi-blackout. Okay, so. Just to give you guys an example of the power grid. So we're broken up into power grids in the U.S., and those power grids are huge power grids where, you have like the main one being like Texas, then you have the eastern side of the U.S., then you have the western side of the U.S., and those power grids are running at different frequency and different hertz and constantly fluctuating and constantly giving off different vibrations, all right? Well, those vibrations, when analyzed by an expert, could be identified from coming from different areas. So,
what?
Coming from very specific areas. And what I mean by that is, in the last decade, these variations are being recorded by the EIA, the U.S. Energy Information Administrative, so EIA.gov. Okay, the Energy Information Administration for the U.S., and they record these electrical signals. They record how the hertz data is running through our electrical systems. Now remember, those hertz give off a very specific sound. Now think of how many electronics there are in our cities, in the world, in the US right now. And then think of areas like metro areas that are super heavily populated that will give off a lot of those vibrations, right? Well, let's say you want to find out where in the grid and at what time somebody was at.
Okay.
Let's say they have a phone on them. Let's say they were talking to somebody on that phone, right?
Okay.
And on that phone, on the other end, they get some kind of a recording. They leave a voicemail. An application is running in the background and picks up sounds coming into that telephone. Well, those sounds that are going into that microphone is the hum, is those frequencies that we're talking about. So then if you get an expert who is able to get their hands on that data from the applications, from the voicemail, from the endless amount of possibilities of recordings, an expert can identify exactly where at in the electrical system that hum is coming from and the specific time. So here's a good example of the grid. That's
crazy.
Look, this is the grid in the San Diego blackout. So this is September 8th, 2001.
It doesn't even seem like it was worse than San Diego.
Look, you can see it start to drop. Do you see on this graph right here? This is where it should be. Okay? This is where the blackout starts. And this is recording the sound coming off of this network of electricity. It's called the Western Interconnection Hemisphere.
Huh.
And it drops, okay? It drops under 59.98. And then hang on, here's the map of it. You'll see these light up, these main hubs. Boom, boom, boom. And then it's coming back to normal. Do you see all those fluctuations in the map?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, imagine you have a cell phone and you're recording those fluctuations in the background by an audio that the human ear cannot hear, but the electronic microphone can pick up. So if you want to find out where somebody is at, these sounds that that our electronics give off is so reliable, it's like a fingerprint.
And at 1122 King Road, there's a house that picked up a thump and a dog barking.
There's a house that picked up a thump and a dog barking, but there is also a cell phone that could have been in airplane mode. There are cell phones right around there. I'm more worried about finding out where Bryan Kohberger has been for the last couple months. That's the important thing here. So how many times has Bryan Kohberger left a voicemail? How many times has a background application picked up audio from his device? How many times, you know what I mean? Is there any audio that we could get analyzed to find out exactly where he was within this grid of electricity?
That's really interesting.
It is interesting because we need to try and figure out a way to locate somebody on this specific grid without triangulation. Triangulation isn't going to work, you guys. It's not going to work.
Not in this area, yeah.
Right. And, you know, I don't like feeling like the only thing that I do is criticize people. I also want to offer solutions. And when someone sent me this and it put me down a rabbit hole, I feel like this could potentially be a really great solution.
You're right.
I think there has to be a whole bunch of different times we could get some sort of audio recording from Bryan Kohberger's electronics.
So, does it say anywhere on there that this has ever been used in a case before?
It has been, actually, here. And we'll show this video, too. This is this was put out over a year ago by a creator named Tom Scott, okay? And he's talking about this from the UK. And he reaches out to an expert.
Work. Okay. Well, to find out, I asked some friends of mine who make videos to send me over some footage, straight out of the camera, unprocessed, unfiltered, and I asked the forensic team, can you timestamp it? First up, footage from Taha, one of the team behind educational channel Answer in Progress.
There's quite a strong component here, and you can see it's got a bit of a wobble. We use a signal processing algorithm to extract the peak, and we constrain that algorithm so that it can't suddenly jump up here. So even if there is a higher amplitude something up here, it will stick to this curve. Then compare. If we know that a recording was taken on a certain day, then we just need to give it a day's worth of National Grid data. If we're not sure when it was taken, we'll throw everything at it and it'll take a bit longer to process, but it's not prohibitive.
Spot on. Got it to the second. Although it's important to say that the team never said they were certain about the timing, only that they had a very high chance of being correct. And yes, they were. Next up, footage from sex and relationships educator.
All right, so she does 3 of them like this.
Does she get every single one right?
The third one, she said there is no data. But what's interesting is in the third one, they have a fan going. A fan is giving off its own sound and frequency.
You're right.
From the blades.
That would mess it up. Yeah.
And they're trying to listen for a hum. The fan is technically creating a vibration in the air, creating that hum, right?
Oh, that would for sure mess it up.
It absolutely. So, but this blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. And the way it's presented makes it sound so reliable. So in cases, it made me wonder, are human beings just too stuck in their routines to look outside the box for these other types of investigative avenues like this? Is there anything in the Bryan Kohberger case that can prove his guilt or prove his innocence with background application data that could have recorded him? Similar to like when you're talking about Reese's peanut butter cup cheesecake, and then the next thing you know, your phone has Reese's peanut butter cup cheesecake popped up on there. That microphone is on and working.
Right.
So where is that data going in the phone? That audio going in your phone, and what settings are turned on in his phone, and can it give us access to any of those audio snippets to give us access to the ENF, the electronic network frequency hum in the background?
That's wild to think about. Like, oh my gosh. How many ways can we be traced nowadays? Like,
I think this is a great one.
No, you're right. This is great. This is wonderful. I mean, for law enforcement to investigate cases like this. But yeah, I think that your question now makes a lot more sense about the microphone, in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like how you asked that question, like would somebody just walk up in a house knowing what they know about tech that has TVs with cameras and microphones, refrigerators with microphones and cameras, like computers everywhere, phones, tablets, like so much tech now has phones, microphones and cameras that it's like, is that a very smart decision that a well-informed person who has experience in technology would just do? Just walk up in a house like that.
Right.
And yeah, that's a good point. Like that they can literally locate you based off of the frequency of the sounds in the background of a video or audio recording.
Now, here's another interesting thing, too. I want you guys to try and think about how far this goes. So this is a college town, okay? There is electronics everywhere plugged in. You're talking security cameras. You're talking the voice system or whatever that's called for emergencies, the emergency button, the sound system for recordings, lights, all these different things, not to mention the houses in the area with who knows what electronics are plugged in. So within his car, okay, because I don't think the hum is anything we have to worry about. I think in any city, there's going to be enough of the hum in the background that as long as we have a recording, we should be able to pick that up. Now, it should also, with enough fine-tuning adjusting, with an expert, get that hum identified and singled out from any environmental noise, any verbal talking noise from a human, and then identify where that is coming from within the grid. Because these grids are recorded. So you should be able to get the rough general area of where somebody's at in a grid based off of how the grid is reacting in that specific area.
So in order for them to be able to place Kohberger that night, there would have to be some kind of audio recording, right?
Yeah, but...
Like from something. Something would have had to record sound that was attached to him.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to be intentional recording. Somebody doesn't have to hit record.
I understand that.
But yeah.
Something would have had to have recorded, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, like a phone that does all the time.
A phone that does all the time?
Yeah. We just talked about this the other day, where I told you, as long as a phone's on, a microphone's being a microphone.
Yeah, but you said it doesn't necessarily get saved.
Correct. Not necessarily.
But it can
depending on your settings.
Okay.
Yeah. So background app data, if your settings are on, can save those audio snippets to customize your cell phone experience to you. That's why when you're asking that question, I want to be very clear. Nothing had to hit record.
Okay.
To get audio.
Okay.
Also, I'm thinking in a car that records with a black box. Some of them have audio recordings.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep. So, what are some of the other ways someone could be recorded?
That's super interesting.
By audio, because all you need is an audio. It's not a guaranteed thing, but have we looked into this?
Right.
And if we're looking into this, how many other things can we look into to try and identify? I'm not an expert on this, but what I hoped to gain by showing this was giving people an example of other investigative tools that are out there.
Yeah. I think it's really beneficial. It's super interesting. I wonder how many police officers even know about this. I wonder how. I just wonder.
Know.
Do they even know about it?
I don't know, but so there's smart TVs, Alexas, computers, cars, smart watches. Anything that has a recording device on it could be used to get audio, to locate somebody, and actually verify for certainty where they're at what time.
Wow.
Yeah, and where they're at in the grid. So, I don't know. For me, it blew me away that there are so many other potential options, right? And it left me with quite a few questions, like like the one I said earlier. Are we a society or country of people where we're just stuck in our old ways? Like, we know cell phones get used in court. We know DNA gets used in court. We know camera identification of vehicles gets used in court. But what do we know that can 100% guarantee his location when cell phone data can't, that can locate him or others?
I think that the FBI and big organizations like that handle like investigations like this, I think a lot of them do get like the newest tech pretty early on. Maybe not super early, but earlier than local tiny town police. You know what I mean? Yeah,
but here's the thing though. So that school was given $1 million. That's academia.
Yeah.
Academia gets the newest tech before anyone. They are the first ones to get it.
You're right.
So is it possible where the college could have been helping in this investigation with some leading edge technology like this? Are we covering all bases here? Because for me, this was incredible stuff, like absolutely incredible. Understanding the sound that all of our electronics give off, that sound being able to be recorded by a device in our pocket against our will or within our will, you know, by choice, leaving a message or calling somebody or a video or a butt dial or a recording or any of the things that can activate an audio app, background data, any of those things, and be able to identify exactly where they're at in our electrical grid and at exactly what time.
That kind of blows my mind.
Yeah.
It's just, it seems way different than like the traditional ways that we've tracked people.
I mean, I think
maybe
it
it's
is.
not. Maybe it's not like, yeah, but
it is way different.
Cell phone data is like essentially frequencies too.
No, it's not like this.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't even. It's not even the same.
Not in the same like ballpark at all. Okay.
You're talking about tracking somebody's sound based on background harmonics.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Cell phone data is, you know, a mix between wavelengths that are issuing data connection and triangulating that. So, but I'm super curious what you guys think about it. This was incredible information to me, like incredible, that somebody can identify where you're at anywhere in this power grid, anywhere in this power grid, and at any time, just by getting that recording and popping, you know, a couple, and I'm sure it's not that simple, but they just write a code to identify that exact background hum to find you in the recordings of the grid, and bam.
It's wild stuff.
Yep, it is.
I'm super curious about it, though, and cases that it's been used in.
Yeah. I thought it was amazing. Science is amazing.
It is amazing.
So, let me know what you guys think.
Wait, could the acoustic testing at the home have anything to do with it?
Maybe. I don't know.
Because isn't that weird? The acoustic testing, like after the fact, maybe it's not about the acoustics of the home. Maybe it's about the hum.
It could be. Maybe they have some sort of recording. Maybe his phone could have been in airplane mode and he was recording what he was doing, the audio recording.
Okay.
And they're comparing how good they would hear the hum from outside with that audio recording. It's totally possible. But it's so interesting knowing there's a hum right now on this video that experts can identify that I can't hear.
Can you hear it? Leave it in the comments.
Wild.
Yeah.
And I feel like these avenues need to be used more. But
yes.
Let me know what you guys think. I'd love to know your input.